and Kayla are on here. There are amazing couple that are moving to Iraq with their family, and we're so grateful that they're moving there, that they're taking on our long history of our base there in Iraq. And so they're on here, and I wanted them to just share a little bit. There's a lot of people that are scared and frightened when it comes to the Middle East and what God's doing there and what's happening. Michael and Kayla, why don't you just share with us right now, among Muslims, what are we seeing God do in Iraq? How are things happening right there?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really unique about northern Iraq, where we're going to be going to Kurdistan, is that the Kurds actually they believe that they can trace their lineage back to the Medes, like the Medes and the Persians and the Jews from that time of exile. And so this people group specifically feels like there's that tie to both of these nations, and there is such a just a rich culture there that is there's a lot of Muslim influence, but there's also so much of a desire for religious freedom. I know that that's something that you've spoken about with the president there, that they want to see religious freedom, but because of that, in their constitution there in that nation, there is nothing that says that you can't share the gospel, which is something that we see in many other Muslim nations, is that sharing the gospel, evangelizing, that is, even converting, that's, it'll get you put in jail. And so, what we really see is that promise from Isaiah 19 saying that Jesus is going to be
Come on.
bringing back that promise for Egypt, Israel, and Assyria, that triangle, that there's going to be highways, that there's a promise for his handiwork, for the work of his hands, for his inheritance, for his people. And what we're seeing with Muslims is that there is such a massive move of God there. And I think that because of the fear, there aren't a lot of people going, there aren't a lot of people responding. But Jesus himself is going. He's showing up in dreams and
Come
visions.
on.
He's like, if you guys aren't going to go, I guess I've got to go. And so he's
The rocks don't cry out. Yeah, it's American people here.
it's kind of like that like we're hearing stories from Syria, during that conflict, that Jesus was finding people hiding in their homes and feeding them. It's just wild, the dreams and visions that people are having of Jesus, and they're coming to
Yeah.
know him. There's stories of him in Mecca, and they are hungry because they see that the path of Islam is death, it is hopelessness, it is despair. And there is and it's empty. And the same thing with Judaism without Christ, it is empty. There is no other religion, there is no other holy book that we can go to. In Romans it talks about, like, the law shows the sin, and that it reveals the sin, but that's the need for a savior. So even the Torah and all of the holy books point back to the need for a savior, because sin is our
Mhm.
greatest enemy, and that is what is at play here. But it always advances the church. Whenever there is
Amen.
conflict, the church is always advanced.
Yeah.
We saw that in northern Iraq when ISIS was pushing. I mean, that was your start in Iraq. ISIS was pushing, and all it did was advance the gospel, that now there are so
Amen.
many more people. 50,000
Yeah.
mosques in Iran have closed, in the past few years. It's wild.
Yeah, and Isaiah 58 says it like this: Is this not a fast that I have chosen, to loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke,
Yeah.
to let the oppressed go free, to break every yoke? And then when you do all, to clothe the naked, to give food to the
Yeah.
hungry, to bring the homeless into your home. And then when you do these things, it says in verse 12, 58 verse 12, it says, then the ancient ruins shall be rebuilt, and you shall repair or rise up the
Yeah.
foundation of many generations. You will be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of the streets to dwell in. And Sean, that goes back to the Isaiah 61 mandate that we have at Let Us Worship too, right?
Yeah.
That we will be the repairer of the breach in our
Yeah.
cities. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to go over there with joy,
Yes.
not just to see a regime change or anything like that, but like, I loved your boldness to pray for a Christian leader. We worked with this ministry one time, and they did a lot of work with prostitution and pimps, and they wouldn't pray for the pimp just to die. They would pray that the pimp would come to know Christ, and that generation of that person's family would change, and then the prostitutes would
Yeah.
leave.
Good mornings always start with good breakfast. So whether you start yours with fluffy waffles.
And so it wasn't just a
Yeah.
new person coming in, it was a saved person coming. It was a saved
Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
And
Come
so
on.
that's what we're doing. That's the joy we get to have.
Yeah.
Sure, there's fear, but where there's persecution and where there is resistance, the greater the breakthrough. And we
Well,
believe we're going to see revival. Yeah.
I would love for you guys to pray that. I'd love
Yeah.
Pastor Rob, if you'd pray to finish. And I want to say this before we close with these two prayers. You know, Michael and Kayla are exhibiting incredible boldness to go out in the midst of war and craziness. And I told them I'm jealous. You know, they get a front row seat to the end times, you know, and I get to watch it on Fox News. Um, but I want them to pray for fear to break off of people. And, you know, we're leading teams into Iraq. We're not going to stop. We're bringing teams into, you know, we're raising up, discipling people that are going into Iran. We're going into Afghanistan. We're going back to Israel, of course. We're not going to stop doing that. And I think this is the time where there's so much fear mongering and propaganda. It really, in my thing, that's like the virus, like kind of like COVID. Like that's the virus. Like stay back, don't do anything, react, just be a keyboard warrior. And instead, we need to pray, and we also need to go. Man, these are times of great harvest. These are times of great miracles. So join with us in Israel. Go, let's hang out with Pastor Rob over there. Go with us to Iraq, follow these guys, all of these guys that are praying today on Instagram, on social media. Learn what God is doing through them, through their ministries. Light a candle with what Rob's doing, what we're doing with all of our trips and all of our things over there. I mean, I was just thinking how cool this is that on July 4th, we're releasing an album of worship that was captured right at the White House, in the place where all these decisions are made. Like, when has that ever happened before? I mean, we were truly living in great days. And, these are days of trials and tribulations and attacks and accusations and wars and rumors of wars, all the Matthew 24 stuff. But we can't afford to be people that the increase of wickedness causes our love to grow cold. In the midst of all this, we got to pray. We got to connect to the word, to our church, to the Bible, and we got to respond in faith. So Michael and Kayla, would you pray? And then Rob, would you pray us off? And then we will all leave into the weekend feeling good.